Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 7 or module 7. This week, we're focusing entirely on the history of reproductive politics, how it's evolved over a relatively broad swath of American history from the 1700s all the way through the early 1900s. So you'll notice we're getting into the 20th century now. Later in the semester, you will read a book chapter that covers more recent developments in the history of reproductive politics. So we will cover a more recent history. So your tasks for this week are, first, don't forget to post your replies from this past week's discussion forum and upload the final draft of your Kindred essay by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. I gave you an extension from Thursday to the Sunday to get your final draft done. But for this coming week, for Module 7, you should start by watching the online lecture on reproductive politics. Notice that it's just under 23 minutes. So it's fairly short, but of course, you should be taking notes as you go, and I imagine you'll stop and start a lot, so it'll take you longer than that. So participate also in the discussion forum. And take the weekly quiz by this Thursday at 11:59 and make sure to post your 2 replies by Sunday at 11:59. So that's it. There's no additional assigned reading. It's just one lecture that you have to watch this week. I assigned a little less work so that you can, I posted the midterm study guide at the end of this week's module. And I want you to have plenty of time to study for the midterm, which is due October 18th. That's a Sunday. So the only other topic that I wanted to focus on in this video is the election. I wanted to remind you to register to vote if you're eligible to vote. The deadline to register to vote, and you can register online, is October 19th. There's also same-day voter registration, but I encourage you to register beforehand. To register to vote, just go to registertovote.ca.gov. So I'm going to continue to talk about the election. I'm 40 years old, and I would say this is one of the most important elections of my lifetime, especially with regard to the presidential election. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what's at stake, what I think is at stake in this election. There's a lot to say here, and I understand that there are different opinions. So I'm going to be focused on the issues rather than specific candidates. So one thing that's at stake is women's rights, right? Including reproductive rights. Are we going to expand women's rights to control their own bodies or further restrict women's rights to control their own bodies? Are we going to work towards dismantling a culture that allows men not only to get away with rape, but actually allows accused rapists and serial sexual harassers to rise to the highest political and legal offices in our country? Immigrant rights. Are we going to further restrict immigration to the United States? Are we going to continue to, imprison, to detain immigrants, to separate children from their families at the border? Or are we going to promote policies that treat immigrants a bit more humanely than that? Workers' rights. Are we going to support policies that improve working conditions and compensation for workers? Or are we going to favor policies that disproportionately benefit the wealthy? Healthcare. Are we going to promote policies that increase access to healthcare, even if those policies are far from perfect? Or are we going to promote policies that decrease access to healthcare? The climate. Are we going to believe scientists and promote policies that slow down climate change? Or are we going to promote policies denying that climate change even exists? Finally, there are a lot of things that I think there's a lot that's at stake, and there are a variety of issues that I could talk about. But the last point is, the question I have is, are we going to build an anti-racist movement in this country capable of dismantling hundreds of years of white supremacy born out of the systems of slavery and colonialism that we've talked about so far in this class? Or are we going to further embolden white nationalism and move backwards instead of forward? So this is only, right, like I said, this is only a sampling of why I think this election is so important, some of the issues that are at stake. There's definitely more that I could say, but I'm going to stop there and leave it at that for now.